Okay, so we have a situation with the session number, but it's okay. It doesn't matter. So let's put our hands together. Say sadhu 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Right. So today we are going to go into this interesting topic that sometimes we need to deal with anger, right? And old friend. So when we are going to look out at anger, when we are going to check this out, we are going to look at it in a few ways. We are going to see the root cause of anger, what is really anger or what is it stemming from. But then we are also going to look at what we can do before it, during and after the anger, right? So it's a whole more holistic approach of anger. But then there's this word in Buddhism called the 3 unwholesome roots, akusala moola, right? So I will introduce you to them, lobha, dvesha and moha. And so we need to get to the root of things, the 3 unwholesome roots, what are they? And let's look into that. So I see some people on Zoom because the other day I was doing a session with some people and they said, we went into a very deep state of meditation on Zoom. It was on Zoom for some Australian people. And they said, you look so calm and, you look very still and calm. But then you know what happened? The Zoom got frozen. So that's why we need to get to the bottom of things. We need to get to the bottom of things without skimming superficially. So the 3 roots of unwholesome thought, akusala moola, are called the lobha, dvesa and moha, greed, hatred and ignorance, roughly translated. But then this is a very easy it's a very easy thing to understand. A lot of things are very easy. They are very natural observations. It's just we don't tend to look at it that way. So the greed and hatred actually are not 2 separate things. They are like the 2 sides of the same coin. So if you take any situation, any person, you have 2 natures. You love someone and then you hate someone. You love something, you hate something. You love a particular place, there's a place that you don't like. So apply it to the 4 P's, the places, people, pastimes and possessions. So we on one hand love things, there's an affinity, and on the other hand there's an aversion. But then why is this aversion and affinity there? It's because of the ignorance that we have. We have a slight misunderstanding of how things are working. We think we should hate these things and we should love these things. So let's try to understand how these 3 things are entangled. So if we get to the root of that, I find this beautiful sutta called the Salla Sutta. Now Salla means an arrow or a sharp knife. But let's try to give it a read. I don't know how understandable sometimes the Pali canon is, because even the English is very complicated. So let's try to read it. Mendicants, as an unlearned ordinary person, feels pleasant, painful, neutral. Now do you remember these words? Pleasant, painful and neutral. Sukha, dukkha and adukkama sukha. 3 words. So any person can feel pleasant, painful and neutral. And there's a word called a learned noble disciple and an unlearned ordinary person. Now what does that mean? I think this translation of Salla Sutta is quite nice, but sometimes you use the ignorant person, which is not nice to use ignorant on someone. But then it's very simple. Some people can be very unaware of things. They just go with the flow. But some people, they just take a break and they reflect. They look at why this is happening, what is going on. Some people are just reacting. So from being in the reaction mood, getting into that introspective mood, that's the difference between a learned and an unlearned person. And then often the Pali word used is called Asutavat Prutakjana and Sutavat Arya Shavaka, which means that someone who has had a previous discussion with someone who has seen this nature, Right? It totally makes sense. A lot of times whenever I tell something, I'm not telling anything new. I'm absolutely not telling anything new except for the names and a few things, maybe places and labels and names. But all these phenomena, we know these things. These are very natural occurrences, natural phenomena. It's just we don't take a break and look at it that way. So when an unlearned ordinary person experiences painful physical sensation, they sorrow and they wail and lament, beating their breast, falling into confusion. They experience two feelings, one physical and one mental. So let's say that something bad happens to you. There are two arrows that we get shot by or get wounded by. One is the physical arrow, the other one is the mental arrow, right? So someone is hungry. Hunger is a physical pain, but then you can be very mentally sad. I am poor, the government is not helping me, and I'm hungry, right? So the same arrow, you can be shot twice if you don't understand the nature of mind. But a learned or a person who has seen the nature of mind, he would not be shot by two arrows, he would be shot by just one arrow. So if you truly understand this very simple phenomena or the simple nature of mind, we are completely out of 50% of our problems, at least 50%. But the way I see it, our reality is about 10 to 20% physical, 80 to 90% mental. So if you truly understand that, you will be at least 50% or 80-90% free of issues. So and then the underlying tendency of this repulsion towards painful feelings, when touched by painful feelings, they look forward to enjoying sensual pleasures. Now that last paragraph, it goes on to explain that, the Salla Sutta, but then I will try to simplify it. I think you remember this particular image I took from expectation. So then there's happiness. There's happiness. When we have happiness, we try to have that expectation. Well, I like it, so I want to repeat it in the future. And when you want to repeat it in the future, there's a journey. So that journey can be an easy journey, an arduous journey, or it can be limiting because we don't have the money, energy, time, etc. to go on that journey. And then once you go there, one good outcome is that your expectation is met. The other outcome is your expectation is not met. Now that's when the problem starts. Yampi ichchang nalabati tampi dukkhang. I wished for something, I was expecting something, I hoped for something, it did not come true, hence I'm very upset, I'm very sad. So we looked at why expectation, how rational our expectations are, can we really validate those expectations? So when the expectations are not met, the immediate reaction is sad, but then this sad also transforms as anger. So this is what this sutta says. It's a beautiful psychoanalysis of what happens in a person's mind. The sadness often gets expressed as anger. So we cannot really look at anger without understanding the full gamut of things, the entire works of it. So it also goes in to say this beautiful verse in Salla Sutta, a person who's sad, who's angry, the only way he knows to get out of that is for him to indulge in some sort of a happiness and get out of it. That's the only way that he knows in his mind. Now that makes a big cycle, another cycle that we cannot get out of. So you are happy, let's say you start with happiness, you are happy for some reason, and then the moment you like it, you expect. The moment you expect, you want to repeat it again, so you need to fulfill that. And at least 50% of the time, things that you wish might not work. If you're very lucky, it might work all the time pretty much, but usually it might work, might not work. That's the nature of things. So they say people have horoscopes and astrology, and the planets are rotating, they are in retrograde, they are on auspicious So when people check those things, there are rough patches. There's this thing called Erashtaka. The Saturn is facing right in front of you. All sorts of things people come up with. But if you look at a person's lifetime, you would see that that person has rough patches. There are some smooth patches. So in a rough patch, 80% of the things that you wish for does not come true. In a good patch, maybe 80% of the things that you wish, they come true. But regardless of that, you're going to get upset. And so anger is actually a side reaction to sadness, the whole thing. So the moment that you're sad and angry, the only way you know how to get out of that is to have another happy moment. That's the only way we know of, right? So it puts us in the same cycle again. So there's no ending. In fact, I put this tornado-like thing. It becomes more and more stronger. So let's say that I'm angry and sad with something. In order for me to top it up, I need something powerful, and then I get attached to it even more. So it is typically like an addiction problem. It's like typically an addiction problem. You start with a gateway drug, and then you go on to all the very serious drugs, right? So the same nature in our mind. That's because we don't understand this cycle, right? And again, this is nothing that I came up with today, and I did not have to, make you trust and believe in this. This is the nature in your life. Is that right? Yeah?
It's not just sadness. It can also be betrayal, hurt, fear.
Correct.
That can be part. So sad is
one part of it.
Piece of that cycle. It's I found for myself. It can be any of those other things too.
Correct. That's when the next slide.
When I'm fearful, I'm angry. Sorry.
You're absolutely right.
For myself, this cycle is something
Correct.
that I have lived many, many years and many thousands, hundreds of thousands.
Right. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. So it's not only anger is not a sad only problem. It could be anything from depression, fear. So I put clustered anger and fear together. So let's see how these emotions are linked. But then very interestingly, what I noticed is that when I was getting married, the day before I got ordained when I was a young boy, I was 28 when I got married. The day before, I was at my parents' house. My mom was so furious. She was scolding everyone but me, right? Because it's politically incorrect to yell at the groom and the bride, but she was very mad at everyone. So then I was wondering why she's so mad and upset, right? And then I noticed the same thing when my brother-in-law was getting married. My mother-in-law was very upset. She was very mad actually. Again, she was not mad at the son-in-law because it would be politically incorrect, but she was, displaying that anger. But then we know that deep down they are losing their son, and that's why you are expressing it as anger. So it's a very, very simple reaction. But then sometimes when a person is angry at me, I always try to see why, like sort of empathize, why is it happening, right? So then there's many reasons why it could happen, but it's very very interesting and very useful to understand that behind anger, it's not anger most of the time. Behind the kids' anger, there's anger. When the kids are angry, they are really angry. But most of the time when the adults are angry, it's sadness, it's hurt, it's depression. Depression is a major cause of that angry derivative, right? So frustration, it could be anything. So I think there's a term like panic attacks, anger attacks. Anger attacks similar to panic attacks, and then often this anger happens as an externalization of the problem rather than the internalization, right? So you yell at a person or a place, you need someone to blame, focus this. So rather than internalizing this whole thing, you externalize it, and there's a beautiful word now, there's a beautiful scale called the AQ scale, adversity quotient. Now back in the day there was only IQ, intelligent quotient, which was good to measure the smart kids, but it did not cover a lot of things like how good you are with your emotional intelligence, EQ, how good are you when you are faced with adversities, adversity quotient. So now there's a beautiful scale called the AQ, and that's so beautiful because it's the fundamental thing that Buddhism is trying to address. There's a saying, Chatubba Vatehi Asampakampiyo, which means regardless of wherever the adversity comes to you, you are unshaken. You are like a pillar which is unshaken. You don't mind. So AQ, so unknowingly, in the Pali canon, they have been talking about the adversity quotient. And now this adversity quotient is often related to control. Control and ownership. There's a model called CORE, control, ownership, COR, reach and reach and endurance, yeah. Control, ownership, reach and endurance. There's a model by a Buddhist scholar who's a professor in US. I've come across it once. So this AQ is basically because we are not in a position to understand the nature of expectations, the nature of how we become happy and satisfy ourselves, and how do we get out of that sad, angry phase. We do not understand that full nature. So whenever I say vipassana, it's noticing this nature of the mind. But it's not thinking about the mind. It's not coming up with a theory. It's a noticing. It's the insight. So these are two different things. We can theorize about it, or we can truly notice this. If we notice this very simple nature of mind, everyone is going to be very free of all the frustrations, depression, sadnesses, and a lot more things in the world. So then there's this thing. So one day, there's a beautiful Zen story. One day a Zen monk wanted to meditate. So he went, he was trying to find a place to meditate in this monastery. In that monastery, everywhere there was someone who's talking and doing something, chopping wood. So it was busy, right? Did it happen to you today, Heidi? It got busy today. I also heard that. So then he was very frustrated. He was very upset. So he went into the river and he took the boat and he thought, well, I'm going to the middle of the river, going to anchor myself so that no one would be able to reach. It will be peaceful. So he went and sat in the middle of the river on the boat now. He's meditating. All of a sudden, someone came and banged. There was a big noise and a big jolt. So he was really furious in his meditation. I escaped all that monastery and everything. Then I came and sat here. Look, they don't even let me stay peaceful here. He opened his eyes to see another boat just drifted down that river and banged against his boat. So that moment he realized, I had so much fury. Like I thought that someone is there trying to disturb my meditation. But then all this time, that anger, that frustration, it's not really in the boat. It's not really a doing of a person. It's the doing of me. Again, a very simple observation, but it's a very profound observation, right? But then again, like expectation, we were discussing, when the water falls, when the rain comes down, we don't curse the clouds. When the sun shines, when the sun is scorching, we don't hate the sun. But when a person does that, remember another monk said, well, like the nature, people also have seasons. They have their good seasons, bad seasons, they react differently. So the same way that the moment we externalize these things and find fault with people, right? We like finding fault with someone, right? In fact, it also happened to me one day. I was walking. I had a few cousins. I was really young, like maybe 10 years old. So we had this game. The coconuts have a little, before the coconuts become big, there's this small coconut which is still small. So we would take these coconuts and throw at each other, right? So you get bruises and bumps in your head. So one day I was walking, there was this coconut. I thought it was one of my cousins, So I looked at very, very furiously, trying to hit him with the coconut I had in my pocket. But then to see it was a real coconut which fell on me, not a big coconut, like a small, young coconut. So then again, that moment I got this epiphany. I was really young again, right? Wow. Right? What's the difference between a person doing that and a nature doing that? Isn't a person also part of the nature? Right? So extremely simple, but then when you really see these things, we can't be truly mad at people, right? If you truly see these things, we can't be mad at people. So then this again, going back to this anger. Anger again can be many reasons. When a person lashes out, it could be just a reaction, or a lot of things happen when people grow up. They have a lot of previous trauma. Sometimes these traumas are not addressed; they are just suppressed, and they are to trigger you when something happens. People can get very triggered because they haven't really expressed anger in a positive manner, hasn't really healed from that wound, so they can be very triggering. Right? We notice that at workplace, when you talk to friends, close people, it could be very triggering. And then it could be just what you have seen from your adults, right? Sometimes we find adults who have their own wounds. They only show aggression so that kid would only understand aggression. That's a normal go-to response that kid would learn. So it's very natural that kid would monkey see, monkey do, right? In fact, whenever parents come here, like even this evening, parents are going to come here for the Sunday school, and they tell me, "Monk, our children are little angry, they are naughty, they are this and that, they are mischievous. Please get them. I want you to correct them. I want you to make them all right." Right? I said I'll give it a try, but then every time I say that, I notice the parents. They are a direct expression of the parents, right? If the parent, not even the children, even the dog, even the pet is an expression of the owner, right? So we can't really teach kids. We can only influence kids. They see and they do, right? So I did not understand back in the day when a kid is mischievous. Like when I was mischievous, they would blame the parents. They would say the parents haven't schooled them correct. Right? I did not really understand that, but now I see because I'm working with children, how much of a influence the parents and the people around them, the adults, have on the children. But there's a nice saying in Sinhala language. The crab. Have you seen crabs on the show? Yeah, crabs always go sideways. They don't move forward. Have you seen that? They always move sideways. So there's a saying. The parent crab would always move sideways and tell the children to go forward. It's funny in my language, but you get the point. They always go sideways. They don't go forward. But they preach the kids, the little crabs, to go forward. Right? So there's a great responsibility being an adult. We need to be a little display certain, not fake it, but at least be mindful of that. Right? So we imprint a lot of things on the next generation. They learn from us. Not even the kids, even the dog learn from us. So let's do that. So so it can be any number of things, from just seeing it from previous trauma, but then there's a big part of these days I hear that there's a lot of anger management. I'm sure that you come across anger management, and at penitentiaries, like a lot of places where anger can take us into really bad places where there's no return. With a simple small act, your entire life can be completely different in a split second, right? So when that happens, it's too late. But then it's also interesting to understand before it happens, the preventive sort of maintenance. So understanding the root of it is of paramount importance. And again, I go back to my animal stories. Like again, some of them are very cruel, but there's a lot that we can learn when we observe animals, right? So even if you look at the mammal kingdom, the chimps and the gorillas and all, they display a slightly complex social behavior. There was this group of gorillas called the silverback gorillas. Gorillas or chimpanzees. Anyway, they were very vicious in attacking another group. So they have staged a invasion for the other group, and they have killed chimps or gorillas one by one in a very vicious manner, atrocious manner. So humans are known to do that. In fact, yesterday I was in Mississauga. There was this big Buddhist celebration, and for that celebration, there was this book written, and I had to write a chapter. And I did not have any idea what to write on that. But then I know this Cambodian lady. I was talking about Cambodia and all that, and then I was talking about my visit to one of the places, war crime places where a genocide has happened in Phnom Penh. So that place, Tulong Salong, S21 imprisonment, it had about 20,000 skulls, and roughly 3 million people died in that. And so it's very gruesome what they have done to people. They have tortured in different manners, a lot of cruel activities. So you see the cruelty of people. It could be for a cause, it could be for something. Back in the day in the Rome, when Athens and Sparta had a fight, Athens was for democracy, Sparta was for bureaucracy or authoritarian ruling. So in order to impose democracy, Athens had a very big war with Sparta. So even for a good cause, you can be very cruel. I've seen even a monk committing suicide in a very horrific manner to save cows, right? To promote vegetarianism. So even for a cause, the cause can be good, but what you do, your act can be very violent. It could be very atrocious. So there are things like that. So with the mammals, you find certain emotions like care. Not all the mammals, not all the animals care for each other. If you look at the leopards and wolves, maybe the wolves a little, but most of the predators, they die with hunger, because once they get old, the little ones are not supporting them. But with the mammals, the primates, we have this, with the primates actually, they have this nature of helping each other. I've heard a story, even the whales, they look after the older whales. When they were about to go down and sink, they would come and just try to hold them, like the way we would take care of a grandfather or grandmother, right? So there's this nature of care, grief, panic, fear and lust, so basic rudimentary natures. But then there's also rage and anger. So often when you look at the rage of an animal, that's just a reaction when your boundaries are transgressed. When someone is in your boundary, you have that rage reaction. So again, I'm going back to the kids. If you notice the kids, they also show these fits of they also have rage. But then the difference between a rage of a kid and an adult or a higher functioning mammal is that kids' rage is very momentary. It's when their boundaries are transgressed or something negative happened to them, they react to it. It's just a reaction. But then when you grow with those reactions, unresolved issues with trauma and triggers, you do not just have a reaction. It's a response to something which has a lot of baggage, right? It's like this, the iceberg. You see the tip of the iceberg, but then there's a lot of things underneath. It's not just a reaction, right? So there could be a reactive form of rage or a anger, but we are not talking about that. We are talking about that other iceberg, right? So that type iceberg is really deep. It's not momentary. It's a very deeply rooted anger. So that's what transforms as resentment, grudge, long-lasting things. I have heard numerous stories of parents and children not talking to each other, who are very mad at each other, doesn't want to see each other. So there's a lot of that type of anger that we harbor among people, right? Over things which happen. So then that's what we can see from the Salla Sutta. Instead of a healthy expression of anger, we keep it to ourselves, bottle it, and then we ends up with having a lot of things. So then we know the root of anger, sort of. We didn't discuss it in full. We know the root of anger. What can we do about it? What can we do before? What can we do during? And what can we do after? So let's look at that. So to put that before, I have this beautiful sutta of metta. Metta literally means compassion, or metta again has this very etymological meaning, a friend, a true friend, maitri, mitra, metta, right? You can be very rude to a friend, because friends, when you talk to each other and all, you're very upfront. You don't have filters with a good friend. With a not so good friend, you keep filters, but with a friend you joke, you bully and all that. But then you do certain things, but not with a bad intention, right? Especially when you are younger, right? You joke around, you say things, but it's with a good intention. It's not with that vicious, malicious intention that you talk that way. So the Karaniya Metta Sutta, the Metta Sutta, I'm sure that you have heard it a few times. The kids chant it. We chanted it over the other day. Karaniya matta kusalena yantan santam padang avisameccha sakko ujuja sujuja suvachochassa mudu anatimani. But then there's this word which keeps on appearing. Sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitatta. It appears quite a few times. So I did not put the entire sutta here. It's a bit long. But then it's very interesting, and you see the word Sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitatta. May all beings be peaceful and be blissful. So then let's try to get into the meaning, some of the meanings of this Metta Sutta. And so the first word you find is Karaniya Matta Kusalena, Kusalena, the skillfulness. Remember, the unwholesome roots of the mind, or the unskillful nature of the mind, and the skillful nature of the mind. So the mind of that word Asut Prutakjana, or the ignorant English translation. I don't want to call them ignorant. It looks like we are calling them idiots. That's not what I want to call them. But I would like to call them skillful and unskillful. How much of a mental skillfulness you have, and how much of a mental unskillfulness you have. So anger, hatred, they are all deemed to be unskillful nature of the mind. They are the unskillful nature. So the skillful nature is the metta, the compassion is the skillful nature of the mind. He who has skilled sakko ujuja sujuja. Now it's a very interesting way that Buddha has looked at it 2500 years ago. Sakko, it's a beautiful word. So I put the image of Gun in here. Avalokiteshwaranatha, the Chinese goddess, or the Bodhisattva of compassion, who depicts compassion. And I see, when you go to certain parts in China, that this goddess is depicted with 1,000 hands. Gunin has 1,000 hands. The same way, the word Shakra means a deity who's in the heaven, who has 1,000 hands. So which is again a depiction that he is capable of doing many things quickly. Because he has 1,000, he's a jack of all trades. He can do anything. He's very skillful. So it's a very interesting trait, or a characteristic of a person who's compassionate. The moment you are skillful, you are less likely to be an angry person. In fact, if you look at the reverse, an unskillful person at a working environment, at an office space, would be the one who's doing all the bad stuff. Because they are not skillful, they are not competent enough. So your competence, your skillful nature, competence basically, your ability, makes you a very kind person. So be more able, become more competent, develop your competencies. Now that's a very different approach to kindness. We think that kindness, we can just have it, but you can't just have kindness. You need to become yourself competent, and then through that competence, you can become compassionate. There's a very interesting study done that which says the most compassionate people are also the most intelligent people. Compassion and intelligence seems to have some sort of a connection. The way I see it, it's very simple. Anger is a very primordial response. It's a very animalistic response that you have. It's based on fear, basically, fear, fight or flight reaction. But then if you go into higher stages of evolution, you find that without using that animalistic pattern of the brain, we can take the high road, the high road. There's a low road and a high road, the quick road and the more prefrontal cortex based road. So when you try to respond to something not through anger, not through that expression of anger, you have to really think about it. So which means it's a good brain exercise. It's like you are expanding your brain by not being angry for something that you are supposed to be angry. So now you have to think, you need to take the high road, you need to work your brain muscle, the prefrontal lobe muscle. And if you keep doing that, you're naturally going to be good at other things also. So instead of seeing problems, you would start seeing solutions. So I think compassion and intelligence really go hand in hand. If you develop one, you're going to be good at the other. So they have a symbiotic relationship. More compassionate you are, more intelligent you are going to be. So whenever kids come to me and when the parents ask me, how can we make our kids more intelligent? I would tell them, teach them compassion.
It has been an interesting experience for me in doing the work that I do for a living.
Right.
Because I have realized, and not to contradict what you said, but to add to it, that people who have experienced adversity are people who carry the most compassion as well.
Right, right. People who carry that, people who are exposed to aggression can also be very kind. It could work both ways, right? But then you also notice that this nature, if someone is very comfortable, if he's very competent, he's also naturally going to be less intimidated because he does not get cornered to a corner. He sees options because he's intelligent, right? So there's no need of reacting with anger, because anger is a reaction when you run out of options. When you run out of options, you get angry. But if you see options, there's no reason for you to be angry. And then Sakko Uju Suju, and then Suvacho Chasa Mudu Anatimani, gentle and humble. Let me take on that one. I will not take the entire session to tell word by word on the Compassion Sutta, but we should do it one day. It's a beautiful sutta. And Mudu Anatimani is again gentle and humble. If you're gentle and humble, you are less likely to be angered. So these are like before we get angry, we should understand this nature of mind. And then there's another beautiful word, Santussakocha Subharocha. Santussako means that you're naturally content. You're not needy all the time, you're not continuously craving for something, you're naturally content. If you're naturally content, you're going to be naturally peaceful and compassionate. Right? But if you are looking for something all the time, if you have that craving, greed or compulsion to get something, you're going to get triggered very easily. You know, someone is going to come in front of you, I'm looking for something and you are here wasting my time, so I'm angry, right? But if you're naturally content, you're going to be much more peaceful. And then this other idea, Subharocha, not very demanding, low maintenance basically. When you're high maintenance, the opposite of Subharocha, you can be very angry. And I have seen this when I travel. Every time I go somewhere, like we were talking with Jason about transition into monkhood and that retirement, it was never difficult for me because whenever I go somewhere, I see that I'm very highly adaptable to that situation. I have slept under trees, I have slept under the moon, I have slept under most expensive hotels in the world, and it doesn't matter because you can sleep anywhere peacefully, and that makes me sort of independent of which location I'm put at. I find it a good quality that I have. I can go anywhere and sleep and be very content with that. So Subaro is a nice quality if we could develop, easy to low maintenance, right? So versus being high expectations, high maintenance, very rigid things, you could do that. And let's take Appakicca. Appakicca is, I put an asterisk mark, a basic quality of a monk is Appakicca Salla Hukavutti. which means that he's not busy. So when people ask me, Monk, are you busy? I want to call you, and I'm very hard to get on the phone. My phone etiquette is really bad. I always tell them I'm busy, not doing anything, because my phone is always on silent. I don't keep it on. So that way, because I'm not busy, I can be peaceful. But then I put an asterisk there. Is it really practical in real life? Can we not do that until we retire? Like at retirement. So this is again translated to English as retirement. Appakicca salloka utti. Can you retire?
Does it distinguish between busy in action but not necessarily busy in thought?
Yes, Colin, you're so great. You're always telling the next thing I'm going to say. So good, so good. Keep it up. Yeah, that's exactly what it means. So you can be very busy in your action, but then you can retire in your thought. Of course, there's going to be limitations. I was talking to someone who's working for Wall Street from Canada. Right, you can be really busy. You can be. They were talking about the American culture of financial industry. Very busy, and he was saying, "I worked in UK. It wasn't that busy. London Stock Exchange was way more calmer, but America is very busy." So your work could be demanding, but then again, there's always a way. Remember the Salla Sutta now. The physical nature of things is one, but the mental nature of things is another. You can be very busy in your physical nature, but at the same time, you can be very calm in your mind. So, appakicca salla hukavutti, but then again, if you retire, you're going to be naturally more compassionate and peaceful, because there's less thing for you to get pressurized. But then we can look at the opposite nature. Why am I so busy? Am I chasing something? Am I chasing my dreams? Why am I so busy? Have I served more on my plate than I can chew, right? Than I can bite, right? What's the reason behind my busyness? So this is a wonderful place for us to sort of reflect of what's happening. So again, I always go back to this idea of vipassana. Vipassana is not reflection. It's just noticing this nature of mind, right? So one day, someone wanted to do vipassana during his shower, when he's taking a bath, right? So he went into the shower, now trying to mindfully, with awareness, take a bath, take a shower, and then he noticed the impermanence of hot water capacity, right? So he found anicca, the impermanence, right? So this is not about trying to contemplate, this is about noticing. Vipassana. So that's a word that we would keep repeating, especially after today. Let me take one last thing. Appagappo, that you understand, not imprudent. But kulesu ananugitto. Now what does that mean? Not greedily attached to the family. Now you might think, well, we need family attachments and all, which is true. But then the context here is slightly different. Forget the family. Some people are really attached to their country. Some people are really attached to their religion, their caste, where the caste is present. I went to this school, which is the oldest school in Sri Lanka. Some people are really attached to that school, and they claim that we are alumni and we are better. Even at 40 years old, they're still living that school dream. I'm attached to my university because I'm an alumni. I'm attached to an organization. I'm attached to a cult. Or I'm attached to a practice. I'm a vegan. I'm a hardcore vegan. I would kill myself for that. I would kill others to become vegan, right? So this does not necessarily mean your attachment to family, but your attachment to ideas, how you identify yourself, right? More you are attached to these things, more triggered you are going to get when some things go wrong, right? So the fundamental, very simple idea behind all this is let go. Take things lightly, right? Take your work lightly. It doesn't mean that you need to be irresponsible, but take it easy, take it lightly, right? The moment you understand to take things lightly, you're going to get that that skill, the skillfulness called metta, compassion, the skill of metta. So that's what we can see from this before we get angry. But what do we do when we are angry, during anger? So the best thing we could do during anger is to understand this nature of mindfulness. How can we be mindful, right? So mindfulness, if we practice enough, the true mindfulness is not something you practice. You're not trying to be mindful, it's your nature. But then you can also force yourself to be mindful. So the first thing that we do during our retreats is that we try to observe things. We are continuously observing things. So we are not judging things, we are observing things as it is. And that way, before we get angry, we see the precursors to anger. Anger is like a pageant. Like yesterday we visited the pageant in Mississauga. Like before a pageant, there's the precursors to that. There's a guy who's coming with a banner, say there's a police vehicle going, saying that there's going to be a pageant. So there's a precursor always to anger. So the same way, if we can develop our sharp mindfulness, we would always see that I am about to get angry. This is going to trigger me now before that real anger happens. So I was in this place in India called Gangotri, where the beginning of the Ganges river. Ganges is a big river. It flows through many states of India all the way to Bangladesh. It's a huge river, one of the biggest rivers. But the beginning of that Ganges is very humble. It's really humble. So the same way, the beginning of anger is controllable. But then the moment it gets this momentum, it's uncontrollable, like an avalanche or the snowballs. The beginning of the snowball is really small, but then when the snowball is big, you cannot stop that. It's almost impossible to stop it. So again, this is a bit of preventive maintenance, right? Before we go there, and even during we go there. But then the next part is we got angry, we did something really bad. What do we do next, right? What do you think we should do next? Let it go, right? It happened. What can we do? But then this letting go is actually not that easy because we have memory, right? Now I've heard this American lady who's called Joy Prince. She can remember everything. Like she has this eidetic photographic memory of everything, like whatever she wore on each day, what she ate, she cannot forget. So that's a good party trick, but it could be very annoying also, right? So we don't remember a lot of things. We remember certain things, but we don't remember a lot of things. So there are some people who have this thing. But the memory that we have, there are three types of memories: the sensory memory, the working memory, and the long-term memory. So when we sense things, they tend to stick with us for some time. Like for example, when you see something, they say that it would stick for about 2 to 3 seconds, 3-4 seconds, and then it will be gone. Like when you pass through something, unless if you really pay attention to that and try to remember that, or in a subconscious manner relate to it, it would just be there and then it will be gone. Compared to the vision, the other senses would be even less. A smell would be remembered for like 0.5 seconds to 1 second, and then it will be gone. So there are these sensory memories coming from our 5 senses, but then there's also the long-term memory. And there's a whole process which the psychologist and neuroscientists, they completely do not understand how it happens. It's a rough way of thinking that, but there's definitely attention, and then there's encoding. You encode that memory, you attach it to an emotion. There are memory hooks and memory tricks that people talk about, and then there's the long-term memory. But what happens is that during this retention, every night we sleep, our memory gets trimmed. We can't remember everything. During the night, the memory gets trimmed, and we only remember certain things the following day, right? So I even heard when I was young, before you go to sleep, try to study, then you will remember more. I don't know if you have heard that. So there's this, we still do not understand the complete works of how memory happens and where it happens and how it happens. Memory, they say, generates around hippocampus, because there was this one person whose hippocampus got cut. He could not have new memory anymore. He remembered everything from the past, but he could not make any new memory. Have you seen this movie of this guy, First 50 Dates? It's a movie from back in the day. So this girl with this head injury, she gets refreshed every day. She can only remember a day's worth once she goes to sleep. I don't think it's a real movie, but there are conditions like that where when your brain, some parts of your brain is damaged, you cannot retain that memory. But then also there's this natural way of fading out the memory. If it's a very traumatizing event, you would block out that memory. Kolita, you want to say?
Yes. Is there like actual relationship between the memory and the dreams we see during the sleep?
You asked me a question that I do not know. No, they say that there is a relationship. In fact, this is not a theory or anything that I want to put as a concrete thing, but I see dreams every day, and I find that I'm very aware in my dreams. I know that I'm dreaming most of the time, right? And then every night when I dream, I see that it's a reflection of what has happened during the day, but in a very weird manner. It's totally does not make any sense. So I'm sure that it's our brain processing all that and trying to put them in proper baskets. And I want to keep it because it's good, and I want to suppress that memory because it's bad. Maybe it's a brain's mechanism, but we do not fully understand that nature. The other part is, even if we understand, can we really do anything about it? Right? So then that's another question. But regardless of whatever it is that we have the memory, but then if we understand this memory, the memory is not like a data bank, like a disk in the computer, like a hard disk. The memory in that hard disk, it stays. It's a particular electrical signal which is on that memory. Or when we had back in the day on tapes, magnetic tapes, it's carved onto that grooves of the old records, vinyl records and all that. It stays. But in the mind, it's not like that. The memory appears when the conditions are right. It's exactly like this grass right now outside. During winter, the conditions are not right, so it wasn't there. When the conditions are right, they appear, right? So we only need to understand that observation of the memory, not the whole complicated works of the memory. I don't know if you noticed that up there's a Buddha statue, and behind that Buddha statue, there's a light panel, a circuit panel. So that LEDs, they have multiple colors. They can display multiple colors like the pixels on our screen. They have RGB. And when the conditions are right, they display one color. And when the other condition is right, they display something else. So the same way, whatever is in our memory is only a momentary condition. It's not engraved like those stone inscriptions, or it's not like a vinyl record which is there forever, which is a good nature that we can make use of. Because of that nature, we understand that rage, resentment, everything that we harbor is only a momentary thing. It's not engraved in your mind. If it's engraved, it will be difficult for us to get rid of that. We will not be able to let go of that. But because of this very nature of the mind, we must let go of that, right? So it's a matter of not making those conditions, or understanding that they are only conditional memories, not there forever. But we have this notion, no, the memories always stay in my mind. Right? We have that nature. We think our mind is also like a hard disk or a vinyl record where the memory is always there. Memory is there when the condition is right. Not only memory, the sadness, fear, everything is like that. Again, I think I told you earlier, I was known to be very mischievous little boy. They don't like me when I go to funerals because I make people laugh, and then they don't like it. But what I notice is that when I crack a joke and when people laugh, the conditions are different. For a moment, they were crying because my most loved person passed away, but for a moment, they get free of that because the conditions are right. Right? So, which is a beautiful nature that if you notice that, you would never be angry at any person. You can never harbor that anger because it's not imprinted on you, it's not engraved on you. It's a momentary condition only. And again, I find that it's extremely possible and extremely easy. I do not hate anyone in the world. I mean, I have become mad at people, I got irritated, I have had momentary interactions with people, but to date I'm very proud of myself that I do not have any resentment, any grudge, any anger towards anyone in my life from the past. And that makes it so much easy, because if you have that anger with someone, if that person is just in front of me, front of you, you are going to be upset. Even if that person doesn't talk, you're going to be very upset and moody, right? So that person can ruin your entire day. But if you don't hate anyone, it doesn't matter. You can go and have a cup of tea, have a chat, and all that. But then again, anger is again an expression. Sometimes you need to express anger, right? So there's a healthy expression of anger, and there's a bad expression or an unskillful nature of anger. So that is about anger. The fear, the other friend. So again, we need to look at the root, we need to look at before, during and after. So it's very easy. During is always the mindfulness. How we have that, how we develop our mindfulness, awareness, and then the next after is always easy. The memories are very conditional, so understand to let go. So those two parts are, when I say easy, it might not be easy, it's probably easier said than done, but they are not definitely impossible tasks. So let's go to before. What is the root of fear? Do you know the root of fear? Uncertainty. Survival. Yeah. Wrong view. Yeah. Wrong view. Wrong view is very interesting. Survival.
A threat to our safety, be it physical or mental or emotional.
Mental, emotional threat to your safety. So fear is always around the survival, right? It's actually a very useful skill. If we do not develop fear, we are going to die very easily, right? But then again, maybe I'm a wrong example. For some reason, my fear part in the brain is not working. And I have done some really stupid things, and I'm very glad to be alive at this point. After everything that I have done. I am not a good swimmer, but I have surfed in very serious places. I have done a lot of things. I walked through a jungle in Indonesia where they asked, don't go because there are Komodo dragons. You're not supposed to even walk in these jungles. I walked, nothing happened. So I can talk about these things because nothing happened. Right? But then I understand something could happen. But then the good thing is, if nothing happens, it's really good. And even if something happens, if you're fine to go today, that's also good, because you have enjoyed your life, right? And again, what I've noticed and what I'm very proud of about myself is that I'm completely ready to go anytime that God tells me to go or the nature tells me to go. I'm very ready, because we don't get a say in that. We go anyway. So it's a matter of whether I go today or tomorrow or next minute or 100 years from now. I don't know if you will live for 100 years, but so that way, if you live again, your life is going to be very enjoyable. You're automatically going to have that other thing, subaro. You are very content, right? If you are ready. So there's this beautiful word which appears in Pali Canon, Bayanti Bhikkave Kamanang Adivachanang, which means baya or the fear is another synonym for greed and attachment. You're really trying to hang on to something, that's why you're afraid. But if you don't have that, you're free. But then very interestingly, I find this nature, now I've met a lot of surfers. They are very free people. For some reason, surfers are very free and very spiritual. They meditate a lot. But then I come to temples, churches and mosques, I see the opposite nature. Right now, don't feel bad about coming to the temple. But I see when people come to a temple, a monastery or a kovil or a church or a mosque, they are trying to protect themselves from the evil that might come upon them, from the bad hell that they might end up after the judgment. They are trying to protect themselves. Right? So Then if you really look at it, if you apply this Bhayanti Bhikkhave Kamanang Adivachanang, behind your fear, there's greed and craving and attachment. So in a way, I found that people come to the temple, to a church, are more greedy and attached and fearful. So that's why they are trying to protect themselves under a refuge. They are trying to take refuge in that. Right? So again, all the temple going community, don't get offended. This is my observation. Right? So, of course, we come here to understand spirituality, but sometimes we come here because we do not want bad to come to us. We are trying to protect ourselves from malady, from diseases, from loss and gain, from loss. We are trying to avoid certain things. So there's this idea called Ashtaloka Dharma, 8 things. 4 are good, 4 are bad. Profit is good, loss is bad. Fame is good, defame is bad. So when people try to come to the temple, they try to keep the good group of good 4 and then stay away from the bad 4. So I find that nature sometimes. So Buddhism again, at least the early Buddhism, is not an insurance coverage. You don't get protected because of that insurance coverage, but you get protected because you have no attachment. That is protection, right? When you have nothing to lose, you have no fear. That's why I have a very open door policy at my room. I don't have a lock, regardless of the breakings we had. My room is always open because I don't have money. And even if I lose whatever, I know it really doesn't matter. So that's a very comforting way to live. Again, I don't know how applicable that is to lay life. I know that when you have children especially, you can let go of everything. The material you can claim on insurance or whatever, but when it comes to children, it's a little difficult. Maybe I'm a bad example again. I felt the same way about my kid also back in the day, that he could go anytime and I can't do anything about that. I can do certain things, but I can't do everything about it. So that's about fear. So I'll not go into this. Basically what I want to tell you is that between fear being a psychological phenomena and risk being a statistical phenomena, because I am an engineer, I look at things very statistically. You apply this matrix, the impact or the consequence of things which could happen, minor, moderate to severe, and then the likelihood. You do this risk analysis, you would see that certain things you really do not have to afraid. For example, if you put into this grid a mosquito, a coyote and a grizzly, right? Iceland, Cambridge and Rocky Mountains. In Iceland, they say that there are no mosquitoes, the most vicious animal there is a mink, right? So it's a peaceful country. So in Iceland, it's very unlikely that you would have a mosquito bite. In Cambridge, we have a lot of mosquitoes. Maybe in Banff, probably there's a lot more mosquitoes there, I don't know. But then a mosquito bite usually in Canada is very harmless. Maybe in Asia there's dengue fever, there's malaria fever, but here is usually harmless. But a fox might attack you. But I don't think an adult would die because of a fox attack. Very unlikely, unless again fox has rabies or some severe thing. But a grizzly attack can be potentially very dangerous, right? So the risk of a grizzly attack, the consequence and the impact of a grizzly attack is higher compared to a mosquito attack. And the likelihood of that occurring can be different based on where you are. But some people can be very afraid of mosquitoes and not be afraid of grizzlies at all. I know this one person who has a phobia. She has a phobia for butterflies and bugs, but she's absolutely okay with tigers and snakes and all, right? So the last thing I wanted to mention is that we will have to look at these emotions. That's before, and during we will have to maintain our mindful awareness state, and then after it's all about understanding the mind and letting go of all that. So we can do that because it's a momentary thing, not there for us to, not there here to stay.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
If we go back to the whirlwind, like that, that picture there.
This one?
Where
Oh,
you
the
said
whirlwind.
circle.
Yeah.
The circle of
This
this
one.
one here.
Right.
So basically, from sad to anger, if we break that line with compassion,
Right.
if you're sad about something,
Right.
turn it around to a compassion,
Right.
does that generate happiness? Then it breaks the entire cycle.
Correct. So with these cycles, remember we discussed so many cycles. With the cycles, it's how you break them. It doesn't matter where. We can even break it at expectation. We can break it at even happiness by understanding if it's really happy or not. So we can break it anywhere. Certain parts might be slightly easier, but depending on the person, because every person is different. Some people might find it easier to break at one pattern than the other. Right, so it's all about again trying to truly understand what is my nature. So I was telling Helen, Guru is ourselves. We are our own Guru, right? We can be our own teacher. We can be our own light, right? We can be our own light. So yeah, so we can break it anywhere.
Yeah, so you said that you have walked through the dangerous forests and stuff without any fear. So do you think the term we call karma has a something to play there? That means it's a repercussion of the good actions we have done, or do you have that faith in your heart when you did this? Okay, I have not done anything bad to anyone, so that I don't have to be frightened or be afraid of anything, so I could walk anywhere. Is that the thought process or the mentality that to chase away the fear?
No, it's just me being stupid. No, seriously, I don't have that part in me. But then again, I notice that part is not there because there's absolutely nothing in this world that I can not let go of. I'm very confident of that. I can gain things, but I can completely let go of things. And when some people ask me can I become a monk? Can I become a monk for a temporary period? I always say I advise them don't do that, because it's a practical test. When you become a monk, you completely let go of all your identity, everything that you own. Completely let go of that. Even when you become a monk, I remember our other monks were there. You are asked to leave your towel also. So you don't bring anything from that life. It's a complete clean break. Your work, everything is a clean break. That's a practical test of, if you could truly go now, right? They say that one day, Buddha's time, there's a Vinaya karma or a ritual. You shave the head. The head monk would shave the hair, and they would give a piece of the hair for you to reflect. And that monk got enlightened while doing that, because then he understood there's nothing that I cannot let go of in this world. Sabbang pahaya gamaniyang. Whether you like it or not, you eventually have to go. So I think behind that thinking, I'm not thinking of anything that there's gods who are protecting me, the angels are protecting me. It's not that, or even my good karma protecting me. I have no attachment to things, so it's easy for me to let go. I'm very ready to go. Again, I've scuba dived, I've met sharks and a lot of things, but and I think there's this other nature, especially you see it with animals. When you this time when I went to the Philippines, I was climbing a mountain, and there was this horse. He looked a very nice horse, so then I was going and patting him. But then the owners came running. They said, please don't go there. This horse is a very wild horse. He has bitten so many tourists who have come here. But then he was very friendly to me. So I think if you can show that you are not angry or afraid, the animals also sort of get it. I've seen it with dogs. They get you in a way, I think. So with sharks, they say that if you meet a shark, don't panic, just be calm. They have this thing called ESP, electrostatic perception. They sort of understand your thing. And I think the other group of animals or beings who understand you are the children. They know you very well. They don't understand language, but they feel. whether this person is a rough and a angry person or a nice person, and they would cry accordingly. Yeah, Colin?
I'm just thinking what I've taken out of what you presented today is that some of the keys to dealing with managing anger are overcoming attachment, being mindful, being self-compassionate, those are like the key three. I had like three
Right.
others in my head, but they're
Right,
gone
right.
now.
No, that's very good,
But
Colin.
those, because I remember from when I was in the Gampa in Mississauga for the 3 years, one of the biggest lessons was that all suffering stems from attachment
Right,
to things, people,
Right.
places,
right,
all
right,
those four people.
right.
Yeah.
I know this question, Colin, because you are involved with this work day to day, and I want to make a small adjustment to this approach. Often in psychology, we talk about anger management, but in Buddhism, we don't manage things.
Yeah.
We notice things, right? So that's a big difference, like especially in the West, when things are looked at, we look at managing things, we look at cognitive behavioral therapy, how you correct this person. But now psychology has understood MBCT, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, which is not really trying to put a person into a good behavior model. But then, so Buddhism again, the difference is that it's not a rule book that you need to follow. You need to be good and mindful and not get angry. That's not what it means. Become mindful and have that insight and let the change occur in you, right? And so that's a slightly different approach, but I find in psychology, the psychotherapy and all that is very much geared about correcting people, which has its own use, because we need that practically. We need to give certain tools to people so that they can get corrected. But then, strictly speaking, in Buddhist view, it's not meant to manage people in a proper behavior, but to have more understanding about yourself. Right? I think as a monk, it's my job to say that how it is different to classical psychology. But again, I understand that we need these tools. We need to apply these tools so we can have good behavior, at least useful tools for people to take out. But strictly speaking, in Buddhism, we are not trying to correct or manage. We are in the business of noticing. Now, it might look, so you notice, but all the damage is happening to you. But then I see this as a more longer term solution. So we probably need more short term psychotherapeutic tools, but this is again for a more longer term solution.
It's like medicine to depress the symptom at the point, because if you have a high fever, you need to bring it down. But solving the problem at the root, I feel like just being mindful and find the root of the cause and remove that solve the problem. Where
I have a related mindfulness question. Earlier you mentioned mindfulness, but you seem to make distinction between the practice of mindfulness and perhaps true or real mindfulness. I might be remembering that wrong. Would you mind commenting on that distinction? Yes, that's a good question. I have this problem when trying to talk in English, because I'm using a limited vocabulary like mindfulness, meditation, which are not very indicative of all the ideas, right? So that's why I'm trying to introduce the bare minimum of Pali words here, because I don't want to over jargon with the Pali words. That's also not a useful exercise. But for example, kusala, akusala, and sati, these are some of the words that I will introduce you to later and distinguish between what is the mainstream mindfulness and these other things that we are talking about. So I'm sure that people who've been coming here for meditation, that we have a clear distinction that meditation is just a number of things. It's not just one. So there are many things. Maybe we can come up with certain definitions, so we stick to that. And when we talk, we know this is what we are talking about. Okay, so I will further explain about mindfulness in the last few parts. That, in fact, the last one is mindfulness. So I will try to cover mindfulness there, so that you won't get disappointed. Okay, so then I'll call it a day on Zoom, and then I will see you on the June 1st of June. And the subject is going to be 4 Noble Truths. Very easy, only 4 things. So 4 Noble Truths. Okay, so take care on Zoom. If you have any questions, just write a mail and I can address that. But then I think we need a lot more time for discussion. So let's put our hands together. Sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitatta. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be blissful. How? Because we understand compassion, we understand the nature of mind, and that way we can wish truly from the bottom of our heart, I do not have resentment, I do not have grudge. May all the beings be peaceful and blissful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.